Millionaire Samuel Valverde returned unexpectedly from his business trip and froze solid the moment he crossed the threshold of his own home. Before his eyes, his little daughter Emilia, wearing a torn and stained pink dress, held Miguel, her barely 8-month-old brother, in her arms. The girl, her voice broken by sobs, pleaded, "Please don't hurt us anymore." In that instant, all the hidden shadows within the estate began to reveal themselves. Hours earlier, Samuel had been in his glass office in downtown Chicago, surrounded by luxury and contracts. A man respected and feared, but unable to remember the last time he had hugged his children. What city are you watching this video from, and what time is it? By the way, if you're enjoying my videos, I'd be so happy if you could subscribe to my channel and like this video. Samuel Valverde slowly closed the last file of the day as the lights of Michigan Avenue reflected off the windows of his office in Chicago. He was 45 years old, with an expanding fortune, and an office decorated with polished wood and glass. But satisfaction was a guest that hadn't visited his soul in a long time. In front of him rested a silver pen, a gift from an Italian business partner, and a framed photo he never looked at too closely. Sarah Morales, his first wife, smiling with the warmth that had disappeared from his life after that tragic night when she never woke up again. The distant hum of the city in exhaustion pressed against his chest. His secretary had reminded him of the next morning's schedule, but for the first time in months, he diverted from his routine. He decided to return to their estate outside the city earlier than planned, without telling anyone, as if a premonition was pushing him. He grabbed his coat and walked out to the hallway. The driver was waiting, but Samuel took the wheel himself, a black Mercedes that gleamed under the light April rain. On the highway, he stopped at a neighborhood diner, one of those with a steel counter and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. He ordered a latte, left some bills as a tip, and barely exchanged words with the server, who greeted him with a, "Good evening, sir." The businessman, accustomed to closing million-dollar deals, could barely respond with a gesture, as if everyday kindness was a foreign language to him. As he approached the outskirts of the city, the downtown skyline emerged on the horizon, dimly lit. He then remembered the afternoons when Sarah would take him to Millennium Park to walk with little Emilia, who was just beginning to babble. He wondered, with an uncomfortable weight, how much his daughter had grown in his absence since Miguel was born and Sarah died. He had fled into work, convinced that Veronica, his second wife, was caring for the children with patience and tenderness. The estate stood on the outskirts near the lake, surrounded by a stone wall and tall cypress trees. The iron gate opened with a creak, and Samuel drove up to the cobblestone courtyard. He turned off the engine and remained inside the car for a moment, breathing deeply. He had decided to come home early without calling ahead, with the idea of surprising the little ones. He imagined Emilia running toward him with her chestnut hair flowing and little Miguel smiling in his arms. That image moved him more than he expected. He entered the house, hung his coat on the rack, and walked through the entryway decorated with wrought iron lamps. An odd silence reigned. Normally, Veronica would rush to greet him with her impeccable smile. And the house, though cold, always had some echo of life that night. However, the air seemed frozen. He took off his gloves and left his briefcase on a side table. He looked up at Sarah's portrait hanging in the hallway. He felt a knot in his throat, a mixture of reproach and silent plea. "I've failed," he thought, but immediately looked away. The wall clock struck 10. Outside, the wind rattled the shutters and fine rain slid down the windows. He took a few more steps toward the living room, alert to any sound, when a barely perceptible noise made him stop. First it was a sob, weak, like someone trying to hide their crying. Then, a small, trembling voice that tore through the air with a plea, "Please don't hurt me and my brother." Samuel froze for an instant, as if time had stopped in the middle of the hallway. The crying was coming from the living room. He walked slowly, his heart pounding in his chest, until he peered through the doorframe. What he saw made him stagger. On the floor, on a disheveled rug, was Emilia, her pink dress stained and her chestnut hair tangled. She pressed little Miguel against her chest as he cried inconsolably. The girl trembled, her little eyes swollen from so much crying. In front of them, standing tall in a tight red dress with impeccable makeup, Veronica Ruiz raised her voice harshly. "Shut up already. I've told you 1,000 times not to bother me. If you keep this up, I'll throw you out on the street." even if it's nighttime." Samuel felt a whip crack in his stomach. The echo of those words pierced him like knives. He moved forward abruptly, placing himself in front of the children. "Enough." His voice came out hoarse but firm. Amelia looked at him with wide-open eyes, not daring to move. Her little hands clung to the fabric of her dirty skirt, as if seeking a refuge she couldn't find. Samuel, clumsy from lack of practice, extended his arms to take Miguel, who continued crying at the top of his lungs. The baby squirmed, but upon feeling his father's warmth, little by little the crying turned into a broken whimper. Veronica, surprised by the interruption, immediately changed her tone. A forced smile appeared on her face as she approached Samuel and placed her hand on the sleeve of his jacket. "Honey, you're home? What a surprise. It's nothing serious. I was just correcting them a little. You know how kids are. Sometimes they get annoying." Her voice became syrupy, like honey hiding poison. Samuel didn't answer, only hugged Miguel tighter. He looked at Amelia, who remained crouching, pressing her lips together to keep from sobbing. It was then that he saw some violet marks, barely visible on the girl's wrist. He felt the air leave his lungs. He tried to remain calm. He crouched down a bit and spoke to his daughter tenderly. "Come here, Amelia. Come to Daddy." The girl hesitated. Her eyes traveled from Veronica to Samuel as if seeking permission to move. Finally, she took a trembling step and rested her forehead against her father's arm. Samuel covered her with his other hand, not daring to touch too hard, as if a rough gesture might break her. "Are you tired, love?" Veronica intervened with a rehearsed sigh. "Don't get upset. I've been alone with them for weeks, and believe me, it's exhausting. The doctor told me they needed discipline." Samuel raised his gaze, facing that perfect smile. He wanted to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. Guilt and rage mixed like a knot in his throat. At that moment, the kitchen door opened, and Mercedes Ortega appeared, the housekeeper who had been in the house for years, with her white apron and hair pulled back in a bun. She looked at the scene without saying anything, only slightly bowed her head toward Samuel before disappearing again into the shadows. That silent gesture said more than any sentence. Veronica clapped softly to break the tension. "Dinner is ready. I've asked them to serve hot soup. Why don't we all sit down? That way the children will calm down." Samuel, still holding Miguel in his arms, agreed to sit down. The dining room was lit by a wrought iron lamp, and on the table steamed a thick vegetable soup and a plate of roasted chicken. Served late, as was customary in many households, Veronica sat to his right while Amelia remained in front of him with hunched shoulders. "Eat, sweetheart, so you'll grow strong," Veronica said in a sweet voice, serving her a piece of chicken on her plate. But when she placed her hand on her shoulder, her fingers pressed too hard. Amelia shuddered and the spoon she was holding began to tremble. Samuel noticed it and his blood boiled, though he tried to hide it. "Amelia, has anyone at school hurt you?" he asked in a lower voice than usual. The girl raised her gaze for an instant. There was panic in her eyes. "No, Dad," she whispered, barely audible before lowering her head. Veronica laughed softly, as if it were a misunderstanding. "Kids play, they trip, they fall. Don't exaggerate, Samuel." He remained silent, slowly turning the spoon between his fingers. The words of his late wife echoed in the deepest part of his memory. "Trust your daughter's eyes when she's afraid." He swallowed with difficulty. During dinner, Miguel began to cry again. Veronica immediately got up to take him, but she held him carelessly, causing the baby to scream even more. Samuel couldn't stand it and stood up. "Give him to me," he ordered, extending his arms. For an instant, their gazes crossed. Veronica's cold eyes, Miguel's silent plea. She finally handed him over with an abrupt gesture. Samuel held the child clumsily, but a few gentle pats on the back were enough for the little one to begin to calm down. Amelia watched him in amazement, as if she couldn't believe that this always absent man could truly protect them. Dinner passed in heavy silence. Veronica tried to start conversations about business in Chicago, about investments and contacts, but Samuel barely responded. Mercedes came and went with the plates without saying a word. Only once did their eyes meet Samuel's, and in that look there was a gleam of warning. When they finished, Samuel left the napkin on the table with a measured gesture. His throat burned with everything he wanted to say and didn't say. Amelia lowered her head, and her eyes shone with a fear that Samuel couldn't ignore. The night stretched on at the estate as if the hours had stopped. Samuel went up to his office after putting the children to bed, though in reality, he couldn't concentrate on any document. He paced back and forth, mentally reviewing every gesture, every word he had witnessed. The echo of Amelia's plea kept hammering in his head. Please don't hurt me and my brother. The silence of the office was barely interrupted by the ticking of the wall clock. Samuel turned on a desk lamp and let himself fall into the leather chair. His hand, almost without realizing it, slid along the edge of a forgotten drawer, the one where Sarah used to keep small notes and drawings from Amelia when she was just a baby. He hesitated for a few seconds before opening it. Inside, he found yellowed papers, birthday cards, and an envelope that seemed intact. His heart stopped when he recognized Sarah's slanted handwriting on the front. For Samuel. With trembling fingers, he opened it and read, "If someday I'm not here, take care of Amelia and Miguel. Don't place your trust too soon in anyone. And above all, trust your daughter's eyes when she's afraid. She won't know how to lie." Samuel pressed the paper against his chest. He felt as if Sarah's voice was echoing in the room again, tender and firm. A sob escaped his lips. Now he understood that he had ignored too many signs. He left the letter on the desk and continued reviewing the drawer. Among the disorganized papers appeared a photograph. It was taken at a steakhouse in downtown Chicago, where he and Sarah used to have dinner when they were just starting their life together. In the image, Sarah smiled, and on her lap was Amelia, just a few months old, with the same big eyes that now looked at him with fear every time Veronica raised her voice. The comparison pierced him like a certainty. That girl was flesh of his flesh, Sarah's living trace. He stood up abruptly with the photo in one hand and the letter in the other. He walked to the window. The city slept under a fine rain, and in the distance the church bells marked midnight. Samuel breathed deeply. He had spent months hiding in business, leaving his children in others' hands, while the only true thing he had left was them. At that instant he heard soft footsteps in the hallway. He turned and saw Mercedes Ortega, who was peeking in discreetly. The woman wore a gray shawl over her shoulders and spoke in a low voice. "Mr. Valverde, there are things you should know." Samuel looked at her intently. She lowered her eyes but then continued, "I've seen how Mrs. Veronica treats them when you're not here. Sometimes she makes the girls stay on the porch, even on cold nights. Just for a small mistake. More than once I found the two of them in the storage room, sleeping on the floor because the door to their bedroom was locked from the outside." Samuel's stomach tightened. "And Miguel?" he asked in a thread of a voice. "She feeds the baby with watered-down formula. He cries from hunger until he falls asleep. I tried to intervene, but she threatened to fire me." Samuel closed his eyes and rested his forehead against the window glass. Guilt hit him like a raging sea. He remembered Sarah's letter. "Trust your daughter's eyes." Everything was falling into place. Mercedes took another step forward with a gesture of courage. "If you need testimony, I'll speak up. The children can't continue like this." Samuel nodded slowly, his lips pressed together. "Thank you, Mercedes. This time I won't stand by with my arms crossed." The woman bowed her head and left, leaving him alone with the weight of the decision. Samuel returned to the desk and spread out the photo and the letter on the table. Then he dialed a number on his cell phone. "Ricardo." His voice came out firm, though broken inside. "Tomorrow come to the estate. I need you to prepare everything. It's time to review the family trust and much more." On the other end, the lawyer's voice responded calmly. "I understand, Samuel. I'll be there at dawn." He hung up and remained for a long while looking at the photo. Amelia, so small then, looked at him from the past with the same intensity that today begged for everything. Protection, affection, presence. For the first time in a long time, Samuel promised himself to deliver. The rain continued beating against the windows. He sat down again, but couldn't concentrate on anything else. He closed his eyes, and in that instant, the image of Amelia returned to his mind. The girl curled up on the floor, hugging her brother. The fear reflected on her face overlapped with Sarah's smile in the photograph. Samuel knew he couldn't wait any longer. That night he barely slept, with the letter on the desk and the photo tucked in the inside pocket of his jacket. When the sky began to lighten over the city skyline, Samuel got up, washed his face with cold water, and went downstairs. Veronica's footsteps already echoed in the kitchen, accompanied by a falsely cheerful humming. Samuel stopped on the last step and thought, what I had seen wasn't just a suspicion. It was a truth that demanded immediate action. The echo of Sarah's voice accompanied him. "Trust your daughter's eyes." The next morning, a gray sky covered the city. Samuel had barely slept, with Sarah's letter still on his office desk. Early in the morning, Ricardo Colmenares, his trusted lawyer, arrived in a discreet car. With a handshake, they understood that this day would mark a before and after. Ricardo reviewed the letter, the photographs of Amelia's wrists, and Mercedes's testimony. He nodded gravely. "With this, we can request immediate protection, but Amelia's voice will be the key." Samuel remained silent, aware of the fear weighing on his daughter. At the county courthouse, the stone walls seemed even more severe. Judge Elena Marquez presided over the courtroom with imposing calm. Veronica entered impeccably dressed in a sober manner, with a handkerchief in her hand and well-calculated tears. Emilia clung to Samuel's arm, while Miguel remained in the care of the social worker, Carla Reyes. The proceedings began. Ricardo explained with serenity. "We request a protection order for the minors. We present evidence of abuse in the letter from the mother, Sarah Morales." Veronica's lawyer replied immediately. "My client is an exemplary stepmother. These are misunderstandings." The judge asked Mercedes Ortega to testify. The woman presented herself with a firm step and a low voice. "I saw how Mrs. Veronica forced the girl to stay outside on cold nights. More than once, I found the little one sleeping in the storage room because the bedroom was locked from the outside, and the baby Miguel was given watered-down formula. He cried from hunger." Silence filled the courtroom. The opposing lawyer tried to discredit her, but Mercedes held the judge's gaze. "I'm not mistaken, Your Honor. I've served in that house for 10 years. The judge then asked, "Can the minor speak?" Samuel leaned toward his daughter. "You don't have to do it, Amelia. I'm with you." She hesitated, clutching her teddy bear, but raised her head. "I want to speak." She went up to the stand, and her voice, at first barely a whisper, became clear. "She told me that if I told anyone, she would throw us out on the street. But I don't want to stay quiet anymore. I don't want Miguel to live in fear." Samuel felt his soul breaking. He covered his face with his hand, as discreet tears ran down his cheeks. Veronica's lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge raised her hand. "Enough." Everyone waited in silence. Veronica, unable to contain herself, stood up abruptly, and her scream filled the courtroom like thunder. "Liar, you're just like your mother, always pretending to be so saintly." Veronica's exclamation echoed throughout the courtroom. The opposing lawyer tried to calm her down, but Judge Marquez struck her gavel 3 times. "Order in the court. Mrs. Ruiz, sit down immediately." Veronica breathed heavily. She dropped into the chair, but her eyes sparkled with an impossible-to-hide resentment. The judge requested that the evidence continue. Ricardo stood up and in a measured voice requested to present one last document. Sarah Morales' letter, the paper, already worn by the years, was handed to the stand. The judge read it in silence, stopping at the most incisive phrases. "Trust your daughter's eyes when she's afraid. She won't know how to lie." Samuel, from his seat, lowered his head. Those words, written before Sarah's death, were now the confirmation of everything he had witnessed in his own home. Veronica's lawyer tried to dismiss the letter. "With all due respect, Your Honor, this writing is not direct evidence. It's only a personal note." But the judge interrupted him. "It provides context and reveals the biological mother's will. It will be taken into account." Ricardo then asked for some printed photographs to be shown. They were recent images of the marks on Amelia's wrists. The silence in the courtroom became even denser. Veronica tried to compose herself and cried again, drying her cheeks with the handkerchief. "Kids fall, they play. It's normal for them to get bruises," she stammered in a trembling voice. The judge carefully observed Amelia, who was still on the stand. The girl kept her gaze lowered but clutched her teddy bear tightly, as if her courage depended on it. At that moment, Samuel remembered another photograph, the one he had found in his office, taken at the steakhouse years ago. He stood up, asked permission, and showed it before the court. It was Sarah with little Amelia in her arms, smiling under the yellow light of the restaurant. "This is proof of what she meant," he said in a broken voice. "She's not just my daughter legally, she's my daughter by blood. She always was, even though I insisted on not seeing it." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Veronica paled, tried to open her mouth, but no words came out. Samuel raised the photo and the letter together, as if joining two pieces of a long-ignored puzzle. The judge nodded slowly. I understand. The bond is clear. Ricardo seized the moment to close his argument. Your Honor, it has been proven that Mrs. Ruiz has not only abused the children, but has also attempted to manipulate the family environment. We request that all custody be removed and an investigation be opened for abuse and fraud. Veronica's lawyer hit the table impatiently. I object. There's no evidence of fraud. Ricardo remained calm. We have witnesses who saw her meeting with a man named Carlos Herrera to discuss transfers from the family trust. Investigations are already underway. The judge asked for silence. Her face, serene until then, became stern. The court has heard enough. We will issue a provisional ruling at the end of this session. Samuel looked at Amelia, who raised her eyes for just an instant. It was the same look that Sarah had described in the letter. Fragile and true, that exchange of glances gave him the certainty he was missing. In the courtroom, Veronica shifted nervously, biting her lip. Finally, she leaned toward the microphone with a bitter voice. You know what, Samuel? You never loved me for who I am. You always compared me to her. I agreed to raise those children who don't carry my blood, but you never gave me your heart. You want the truth? I hate them. I hate them because every day they remind me of Sarah. An icy silence fell over the courtroom. Amelia clutched her stuffed animal so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Samuel closed his eyes as if those words were the final blow. Then he opened them and spoke calmly, looking directly at the judge. I cannot allow my children to live even one more day under that shadow. The judge nodded, leaning over the files. The tension was so thick that no one breathed when the judge announced, "The provisional ruling will be issued right now." Judge Marquez struck the gavel and announced, "All custody of Mrs. Veronica Ruiz is immediately suspended. Provisional guardianship of Amelia and Miguel remains in the hands of their father, Mr. Samuel Valverde." The silence broke with a sigh of relief. Amelia ran to her father and hugged him tightly. Miguel was placed in his arms, and Samuel held them both with tears falling without shame. Veronica shouted from her seat but was escorted out of the courtroom, her fury silenced by the firmness of justice. In the hallway, the reporters' flashes couldn't penetrate the protective circle formed by Samuel, the children, and Ricardo the lawyer. Back at the estate, Mercedes opened the door with moist eyes. "Thank God," she murmured, caressing Amelia's cheek. The following days marked a new beginning. Samuel stayed in the area, taking Amelia to school, caring for Miguel, and slowly learning to be a present father. A small garden sprouted in the yard with a hand-painted sign, Sarah's garden. There, among tomato plants and laughter, the children recovered their joy. One night, Amelia asked in a low voice, "Dad, you won't leave us alone ever again, right?" Samuel knelt down, looking into her eyes. "Never again, sweetheart." She hugged him tightly. Samuel knew then that the promise made to Sarah and confirmed by justice was now being fulfilled in every smile and in every peaceful breath of his children. The home was at peace at last, and under the American sky, Samuel understood that he had recovered the only thing that truly mattered, the warmth of a united family. There are moments in life that mark us forever. The image of a father returning in time to embrace his children, of a little girl who found the courage to speak, and of a house that became a home again after so many shadows. These are memories that invite us to reflect. What did you think of this story? If it moved you, write a 1 in the comments. If you think there's something we could improve, leave a 0. The most important thing isn't always being right, but keeping the conversation alive. From this story comes a clear lesson. Money, reputation, and power don't fill the heart. Only true love, the courage to ask for forgiveness, and the decision to protect those we love give meaning to our existence. Sincere affection can change destinies. We all deserve to be embraced and feel that we belong to a family. As the elders used to say, true wealth is measured at the shared table. And it's true. A simple gesture is enough to light up someone else's darkness, just like a lamp lit in the window guides the traveler lost in the night. An act of kindness can show the way in the midst of the harshest trials. That was Sarah's invisible legacy to Samuel. To trust his children's eyes, to listen to their silences, and to give them the protection that should never be lacking. Today, seeing Amelia laugh and Miguel grow strong, we understand that justice played its role, but it was the power of love that truly restored peace. That is the invitation of this story. To remember that we are always in time to repair, to extend our hand, and to start over. If this story gave you a moment of peace, share it so someone else can find comfort. Do you want us to continue telling more stories of healing together? Or would you prefer us to focus on the life of one of the characters? Leave me your comment. Thank you for listening with an open heart. And remember, we will meet again in the next story.